Russia recently expelled a British diplomat, accusing him of espionage. According to Russia's foreign ministry, the diplomat allegedly used false information to enter the country and engaged in intelligence activities. This incident follows a series of similar expulsions, with Russia previously removing 6 British diplomats on similar grounds.
So, from the statement that the FSB, Russia's Domestic Security Service, put out today, they claim that a British diplomat, the second secretary of the political department of the British Embassy in Moscow, has been expelled, claiming that he provided false information for his entry to Russia and claiming that he was involved in espionage. The British ambassador has been summoned to the Russian Foreign Ministry. Now, this in itself is no huge surprise. I mean, relations between Russia and the West have been going from bad to worse to even worse over the last few years, certainly over the last few months. And expulsions have happened. I remember early this year, I think it was in August, 6 British diplomats were expelled from Moscow. So it's one more sign of the poor relationship, putting it lightly, between Moscow and London. The fact that Britain removed restrictions on the use of these longer-range weapons, the Storm Shadow missiles, so that Ukraine could then fire these missiles at Russian soil, that made the Russians extremely angry. If we remember last week, Vladimir Putin's response when he gave that national address, that TV address, he was furious about that and about the American ATACMS missiles being fired at Russian territory. So a few days later, what do we see? We see a British diplomat being expelled. As I say, there's no official link made between the two things in the official Russian statements, but I think it's a reflection of the general deterioration, to put it lightly, in UK-Russian relations.
The dismissal of a British diplomat is a clear signal of the ongoing deterioration in relations between Russia and Western nations, particularly the UK. This expulsion is not an isolated incident, but part of a pattern of diplomatic hostility. It follows a history of sanctions, espionage accusations, military provocations, and disagreements over international conflicts, such as the war in Ukraine, and disputes in the Middle East. Each diplomatic spat further deepens the divide, making cooperation on global security matters less likely. Diplomatic actions like the expulsion of diplomats often precede or coincide with more aggressive military posturing. The current environment includes significant military buildups by Russia and NATO, with increasing troop movements, military exercises, and weapon deployments. The expulsion can be seen as a symbolic gesture, signaling a readiness for more direct confrontations. In the past, such diplomatic expulsions have been precursors to heightened military activity or even military conflicts, as they diminish the channels for peaceful negotiation. Diplomacy plays a crucial role in preventing conflicts from escalating into open warfare. Removing diplomats not only hampers communication between countries, but also signals a willingness to shift from dialogue to more confrontational measures. As diplomatic channels close, the risk of misunderstandings and miscalculations grows, potentially leading to rapid escalation in any tense situation. When nations cut off formal communication, it heightens the chance of resorting to force or aggressive economic measures. The expulsion of a British diplomat should be viewed in the broader context of proxy conflicts, where Russia and Western nations are already indirectly clashing. From Ukraine to Syria, global hotspots have seen increased involvement by superpowers backing opposing sides. Each diplomatic incident can be seen as a move on the geopolitical chessboard, indicating deeper alignment with allies and adversaries. The diplomatic tussle between Russia and the UK could imply a realignment of global power blocs, much like the alliances that led up to World War I and II. The current era is marked by a surge in nationalism and authoritarianism in several countries, including Russia. This shift has led to a more aggressive stance in foreign policy, with leaders like Putin portraying Western nations as existential threats. Expulsions of diplomats are often framed domestically as acts of national defense, reinforcing the idea that the country is under threat from external enemies. Such narratives create a more hostile international environment, fostering a them versus us mentality that historically precedes major conflicts. Expelling diplomats often violates the spirit of international norms and agreements designed to maintain peace and order. The recent action by Russia can be seen as another step away from these stabilizing frameworks, hinting at a world where international laws and agreements are increasingly disregarded. This trend toward unilateral actions and the erosion of multilateral diplomacy has been a key characteristic of the prelude to past world wars. The dismissal of the British diplomat is, therefore, not just an isolated diplomatic incident. It is part of a broader trend of increasing hostility and fractured communication between major global powers. In a world already marked by rising military tensions, economic confrontations, and the realignment of international alliances, this incident adds fuel to the concerns that the global stage is being set for a larger, potentially catastrophic conflict.